This series, the TIF-Lens series, the idea is that we're going to zoom in on the different categories of the Transitions Integration Framework. And this installment is effective communication. So if this isn't the one you wanted, stay anyway. Okay. Next, let's look at what we're going to do today. Or maybe not. Patsy!
Uh-oh, did you freeze up again? Here we go.
I did. There. Okay. We're good. I'm okay.
You got it? Okay. Couldn't share mine too.
So, I would love if everybody could practice the chat box for a second. So if everybody could find the chat box again and hit the plus if it's not opened. And if you could tell me what level you're teaching. And that's probably the most important. What level, or what if you're teaching GED, or if you're teaching L1 learners, English as a, that's their first language, etc. Let's just take a couple minutes so I can get a feel for who's there. Okay, so low beginning and pretty much everything, but ABE side, multi-level, and let's see, low advanced and pre-occupational, so the pre-nursing. Let's see, who else did I miss? Okay, it looks like there's a few others, a one-room schoolhouse, so ESL and GED. Great. Okay, great. And this is just, again, just to remind everybody that we are on mute, but at any time that you need to speak, you can unmute. A nice way to do that is to maybe first raise your hand. That gives Patsy and I a heads up that you do want, you have a question or something to say, or a problem that we can handle. All right, let's go. All right, so we're going to look at first the purpose of the Transitions Integration Framework. And I recognize several of your names, and many of you have already had experience with the Transitions Integration Framework, which from this point on in the presentation I will call the TIF. And then we'll be exploring the effective communication category. And we'll be exploring that by using the chat function. So using the chat box, and you can see on the PowerPoint that there's a little visual of that chat box. We'll also be looking at what we call the complete TIF, which is a larger document that has sample activities available. And at that point, we'll do some sharing out, in which we can take volunteers. So please be prepared to volunteer. I would love if everybody would kind of commit to the webinar that they would have volunteer at least once during the webinar. That would be excellent. So you can raise your hand, and then you can unmute using the microphone icon. We'll look at the ACES process, which is a process that helps us integrate the TIF skills, in this case the effective communication skills, into our lessons, or for example if you have that one-room schoolhouse, into the processes that you use in your classroom, procedures, etc., or individual lessons. And that you will need to access a video. One of the limitations of GoTo is that we cannot share the video all together. It doesn't have the capability to have the sound of the video. So at this point in the presentation, you will open up a new tab on your browser. And actually, it should do it pretty automatically. I'm going to show you, I guess it's in your materials folder. So if you click the plus sign of the materials, and then you see the post-ACES lesson with the world next to it, you'll be able to click on that, and it will open a browser tab, and you'll be able to watch the video at that time. It is approximately 20 minutes, but if you could watch about 15 minutes of it on your own, and then we would come back together and we will chat or share out about that video. And that is showing the integration of effective communication skills. And finally, we're going to explore something that I call TIF Methods. And these are ways that we integrate TIF skills into our classrooms without it being part of the lesson content. So this will be something like routines or technology that we use or different language that we teach that gets integrated into our classroom but it isn't topic based. And I'll explain that more later. Great. So let's get started. Okay, so here is ACE's mission to ensure that ABE programs are able to provide effective, contextualized instruction integrating post-secondary education and training readiness, employability skills, and career readiness at all levels. And this is the mission because we have found that we, as in the state of Minnesota and the practitioners and researchers there, have found that the skills within the TIF, these transition skills, are making or breaking a person's post-secondary experience or their educational experience, meaning they're not able to be successful in those places without transition skills. And effective communication is one category of those. So, it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's a pole. So, yeah, I know that's corny, but at least I didn't put Superman on here. So the question is, where are you at with effective communication? So how do you integrate it already? Patsy, at this point, we can launch the poll. Is that something you do or I launch it?
Let me give it a go here. So select poll. How would you characterize your integration? Is that the one?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if I can do that. Can people see it on their screens now? So go ahead and take that poll if you see it. If you don't see it, please let me know. And Leah, you probably might not because you're an organizer.
Correct. I can just see it in my little box. There, it's working.
But I do see people responding, so that's a good sign.
All right. 86% have voted. I guess we could go ahead and publish it as is.
Yeah.
So I think you
close that.
Push close.
And then I'll share those results. Can you see the
and
results?
Share, yeah. Okay, so according to my little viewer, I see 33% at I know I'm doing it, and 50% at it's part of what I do, but I'm not very intentional about it, and 33% at I'm very intentional. I very intentionally integrate effective communication skills. Great. We will have a similar poll at the end of the webinar, and so look forward to that. Okay, effective communications. All right, we're going to try some matching first, just to get everybody familiar with the category of the TIF and some of the skills it contains.
Say, Lee, I'm not sure we see your PowerPoint. Can you pull that back up?
Oh, really?
The screen? You might have to share your screen again. It does that.
It's not giving me access to that.
Well, let me see if I can help us out here.
Oh, because it's being superseded by the poll.
Okay, now I see.
Did that work?
Yep, you got it.
After I closed it on my screen. Okay, great.
Oh, now we know. Great, thank you.
Okay, so the effective communication category contains 3 skills, and then each of those skills is broken down into sub-skills, and that could be between 3 and 7 different sub-skills. So we're going to read each of the communication skills on the next slide, and then we'll have the sub-skills as well. I'll fly those in, and at that point you can chat what you think what skill it belongs to. We'll do the first one together so that you understand what I'm talking about. You can also look at that's great. Yeah, I know we do have the overview there. So the idea is maybe don't look at that yet. If you look at page 2 of your handouts, however, that's the worksheet where the matching exercise is on. So here are the 3 skills. Skill 1, engage positively and actively with individuals, etc. Skill 2, use language, style, level of formality, and nonverbal cues appropriate to context and text, etc. And skill 3, utilize a variety of technologies for communication. So here's the first sub-skill. Acknowledge and affirm others regardless of culture. Go ahead and chat which one you think it is. You can put a 1, a 2, or a 3. Is it skill 1, 2, or 3? All right. And I will only give a little bit of time, otherwise this could take us the whole webinar. So I'll just see, if you guys want to chat, that's great. And then I will hopefully fly in the answer. So if number 1 is what you chose, you are correct and you get a gold star. All right. Next one. Choose appropriate level. Register. Okay, great. There we go. See, do you love my PowerPoint expertise? I can make that box flip around. I know. I'm so excited. Now, the interesting thing about this is some of the technology skills could easily go into skill 2 sometimes or skill 1. We took out all of the technology-related references and put them into a separate category of its own. So if you said skill 2 for this, absolutely it could be part of skill 2. But since we took out technology and looked at communication within technology, it really is part of skill 3 for this organization schema. Employ protocols appropriate to audience and purpose when using technology tools. And again, register goes into skill 2, but the whole idea is finding the correct tools for technology communication. So it really, for this organization, is skill 3. Okay, gestures, body language in a particular context. Okay, skill 2. Express expectations. I like this one because it's 2-pronged. One, you express your expectations, but you also understand and accept the expectations of others. And that is a 1. Participate, make contributions, and encourage contributions. And this really is one-upping the participating. I know we always want our students to participate, but this is more than that. This is, hey, we would like everybody in the group to help each other participate also. All right. Okay. So I wanted to get you a feel for the skills. So I'm going to, you don't have to continue to chat unless you really want to. I'm going to go through the next ones a little bit more quickly. I hope I don't take the fun out of it for you, but so that we have time. All right. So there's, it looks like people were pretty familiar with it. I was a little afraid that maybe I made a mistake, but I think I was right. Okay. Um, so the Transitions Integration Framework, the complete TIF, we're going to get a chance now to kind of look at what it contains. It has some categories and definitions for those 8 categories. It has skills and sub-skills like we were just looking at for effective communications. It also has some sample activities. So what I'm going to do is just lead you through the layout by using the next few slides, lead you through the layout of the complete TIF. So at the top in yellow is the effective communication, the definition. I'll let you read that. Okay. Then if you go down to the next part in yellow again, these are, the first one is showing skill 1, and it has the SWBIT, which is students will be able to. And then it breaks it down into the, in this case, 6 sub-skills that we had seen earlier. Moving to the next yellow part, here again, but this is one of the sub-skills. So we're looking at the skill 1, which is engage positively and actively, but it is highlighting the sub-skill A, which is seek and offer clarification. And then it's showing that we are going to give some sample activities at a continuum of complexity. So you could think of the first column on the left being beginning, the middle one perhaps is intermediate, and the one on the end on the right side is advanced. If we look at those sample activities, and this is what we're going to get a chance to do in the next few minutes, you can see that you can role play basic scenarios using rote phrases at the beginning level. You can role play scenarios again, but this time using more of a variety of phrases, and this is to request clarification, etc. And then at the further end is more about a discussion and talking about consequences if you don't get clarification that you need. If you think about in a work setting, for example, if I don't understand my job and I don't ask for clarification, what kind of consequences could there be? We also have, for the sub-skills that we have highlighted, we also have technology activities. So these are some ideas on how students could practice this particular sub-skill, seek and offer clarification, and use technology at the same time. In this case, it's using my very favorite recording program, Vocaroo.com. I highly recommend it. It's pretty darn easy to use, so it makes for a very fun activity with the class, and students can record and they can listen to themselves as well. And at the bottom are different contexts. So wherever you see the asterisk, you can follow it down and it'll give you different ideas. So for example, the role play activity. Oh, I have a question from Patsy, and it's Vocaroo.com. I'm going to just go up, and if you look at here, Vocaroo.com is a website where you just go to Vocaroo.com and you record. You push the record button, and it's wonderful. It gives you the option just to listen back or to email it, and it's pretty easy even for beginning users. And for the asterisk, if you go up, I'm just going to show that really quickly. For here, for example, role play basic scenarios, and then you go down to the context. So for community, you could role play at the grocery store, the bank, or at school. You could role play in the classroom, workplace. So that's how the contexts work there. Okay, and these papers are also available in your handout for effective communication. The handouts I provide, or that you printed out, have several pages of the effective communication. So what we're going to do next is you're going to get a chance to look at those handouts, and I am going to make sure I have my notes for that in front of me. Just give me 1 second. Okay, it looks like they are on Sorry, I gotta find the handout. Looks like it starts at page 7. So 7 through, so the first subskill that's highlighted for skill 1 is on page 7. So 7 and 8 are 2 subskills that go along with skill 1. Page 9 and 10 are 2 subskills that go along with skill 2. And page 11 and 12 are 2 subskills that go along with 12. We're going to kind of go through each one. What you need to have from your handout for sure is page 6, and that is the grid. If you look at that now on page 6, we're going to look at the sample activities. We'll do the first one together. So again, this is the one I showed you earlier with the role play, the scenarios at the 3 different levels. And I'll zoom in on that so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, I just realized how I'm doing this. Okay, so I want you to look at that screen and see if there's a particular one that interests you. What activity could you do with your learner? I'm going to use this one as an example, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just chat what I think. So I'm going to look at which one I think is good for my level, and then I'm going to do a quick chat. Actually, Patsy, I'm going to ask your advice on that. I think a share out would be better. Do you think?
I think that'll be fine. Yeah, we don't have a very large group, so maybe if someone's ready, they could just raise their hand, and we could just call. I can just call on someone.
Great. And from the grid on handout 6, it's really looking at which one do you think you could use in your class, what level, the beginning, the intermediate, or the advanced, and what tweaks would you do for your context or your level. Would anybody want to share that out?
I see Erin's hand is up. Erin, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I should just talk about something that my class maybe is working on and how I could use one of the activities in the grid and to TIF that activity.
Sure.
Okay. So my advanced students in my multi-level group, they break out into differentiated groups, and the advanced students are they've been working with it's out of the Ventures Transitions book. It's about how to make small talk. So I was thinking about maybe a situation where you're encountering somebody that you don't know, like you walk into a store and need to ask for information. And so we could do they could have a discussion about situations where you would need to ask for clarification from somebody that you don't know. And you might need to make small talk, but in a way where you're trying to politely get information for something you need. And so they could come up with some examples of, concretely what they might be asking for, and maybe write. I could have them break into groups and write dialogues where it works well, where they're getting good results asking for clarification, and one where they're not asking for clarification properly and their small talk is maybe not appropriate or it's not effective.
That's super. Okay, Erin, that's exactly what I was hoping for. So thank you. That's a really great contribution to the webinar. Thanks. Let's move to the next screen, and at this point you can change to look at page 10 of your handouts, which is, but I will also zoom in on this one so you can see it at this point. And this one we're going to look at is effective communication skills, skill 2, sub-skill B, and that should be on page 10 if I have this numbered correctly. Go ahead and take a couple minutes to look at these activities. You can look at the yellow ones or the gray ones, which are the technology ones. And then if I could get a volunteer to share out, again, one that they think would be interesting to try with their class and how they might modify it. Okay. Anybody have something in particular they think is interesting there for them?
Oh, I see Sarah's hand is up. Sarah, why don't you go ahead?
I'm just thinking about some low-level students I was working with in Nashville, and for the salmon pat, I don't remember what lesson it is, but of course there are all the lessons where they don't have cars and they need a car and they need to go somewhere. So there are a few times when I've had the students figure out what to do next, but what I haven't done as much is have them figure out, like, how would they call Gus to ask for a ride in the taxi, or how would they contact, and who to contact and for what reason. So there might be some added levels of complexity that I could bring into that lesson.
Great. Yeah, well, that's great to go from a reading and build on it. So therefore, we're working on their skills of reading, but we're integrating these transition skills into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I see Gail's hand is up.
Yeah, I was thinking about, we talked some about appropriate, who you can communicate about what in a nursing home. And if you have an upset with a colleague, whether you talk directly to the colleague or you talk to your supervisor. So I think I could imagine adding in which of these requires, mostly I've just been presuming you're going to have a direct conversation, but we might talk about how you might follow up a direct conversation with email and sort of talk about what you get by talking to your boss in person and the pros and cons of both, but you might use email for a follow-up to summarize what came out of the conversation.
Yeah, super. So that's kind of combining the two, both the yellow normal regular activities and the technology one, because we are looking at what are the correct protocols for email. When would it be appropriate to do that? And you're right, maybe if the first is a face-to-face and a follow-up, it might be appropriate in an email. Great, thanks. All right, I'm going to move us on to the next one. So this is one page from the skill 3, which should be page 12. I like this one, by the way. Okay, and whenever anybody has one that they think they would like to use, or maybe something similar in a different way, that's fine. Something to share with the group, that'd be great if we could get another volunteer.
So Leah, I see both Nancy and Rosie have their hands up.
Great.
This is Rosie. One of the things that I have done in my class is to, we are studying problems in an apartment, and how should they communicate with the landlord? Should they call? Should they send a text? Or should they email? So it was on in a very simple way, because I was doing this with very low-level students, but they were able to tell me and to tell one another which they felt would be most appropriate in that situation and which might get results.
Okay. Great. And did you say, did Nancy also have her hand up?
She did. Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
I did, and I was just thinking, oh yes, that I think it would be interesting to do a role playing, kind of tying that in with the idea of, you know, creating a little scene where we're in class, but have the students, some using the cell phone, just talking to somebody else, calls coming in, so that people, the other students could realize how distracting that is, and create together that certainly if you need to take a cell phone call, step out of the room for a few minutes. Try not to just, you know, sit in class and distract and disturb others. So sort of just that idea of role playing with appropriate cell phone use and how irritating it is to others that are trying to function, take a test or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I've resorted to telling people I'm going to charge them $5 if their phone goes off. We joke about it, but it does get quite exacerbating.
It does. And, you know, change it to the silent setting, the buzz or whatever, and just step out. My classroom is certainly free enough that they can step out if they need to take a call, but just to not irritate the other students.
Yeah, I love the idea of a role play. That's a great idea. In fact, I'll steal that one. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, great. Feel free to chat anything else that comes up if you're dying to share something. Otherwise, we'll keep continuing on to the next slide. And the next part of the presentation is about the ACEs process. So we got to see some sample activities. And what I want to say is that if you get a chance to print out the complete TIF, which is on the Atlas website, and at the end of the webinar I will be able to show you how to access that. It does really have some great examples for all of the skills in all of the TIF categories. I shouldn't say, yeah, all of the skills in all of the TIF categories. It highlights 2 of the sub-skills from each skill of the TIF and provides sample activities. And I do really think it's a great springboard to thinking of other ways to integrate these skills. So that's one thing, being able to access some kind of ready sample activities. And another way is just to look at what we're already doing. And when we look at what we already are doing and what texts we're already using, we can use what I've dubbed as the ACEs process. So give me an A for ACEs. So A stands for assess. So we're assessing our instruction and the materials in our curriculum to identify where TIF skills are addressed. So we're taking what we already have and basically I'm evaluating it. So what does it already offer me in terms of effective communication skills, if that's the category I'm looking at? After that, I say, hey, that's not good enough for me. I just want to give it a little bit more pizzazz, so I'm going to do C, which is complement. And this I do to intentionally integrate TIF skills. So I'm going to add more to what that lesson had. So in effective communication, I might decide that I'm going to take a little bit of time in this lesson to talk about asking clarifying questions and refer people to a poster or get people to give, this is the time I actually have to say Sheldon. Sheldon. For good, oh my gosh. Okay, so complement is intentionally integrate more into the lesson that you're developing. Now, E comes after we do our lesson and we evaluate the outcomes of that lesson. And that's pretty standard for instruction. We evaluate what we do, and finally the S stands for study and reflect. What else do my students need, and what else do I need to be able to be an effective instructor and get them what they need? All right, the ones that we're going to look at today for this webinar is assess, or I should say are, assess and complement. Step 1, assess. So if we look at the directions here, it says look at the pre-ACEs lesson components and assess each for the EC, which is effective communication skills and sub-skills it contains. Refer to the TIF at a glance EC snapshot on page 2. So I'll give everybody just a second to find that on page 2 of your handouts. And that is basically a checklist of the skills and sub-skills that are available in the TIF at a glance, which is our abbreviated version of the TIF. And I'm just double checking to make sure I have the right handout number, page 2. Yep, we're good. Okay. Again, mine printed out kind of funny, but and it is not correct. It's actually page 3, so I'm glad I double checked. So make a note. Page 3 is what you want. And then find page 13 of your handouts. Page 13 is a grid that we're going to use just to jot down some notes as we think about what skills we find in this lesson. So I don't know if you can kind of have those, spread them out around you. You have page 3 on one hand and page 13 for taking notes. And then just to make it more complicated, like you are an octopus and have 8 tentacles by which to handle all of these papers, I want you to look at page 15 and page 16. Page 15 and 16 are the pre-ACES lesson. These are like my papers that I start off with before I even think of transition skills. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this story today that goes along with my theme, which is introductions. And I actually have some slides that zero in on this. So if you're not able to handle all of these papers flying around, you can look at the slide as well. So the pre-ACES lesson.
Leah,
yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I see a couple of hands up, and I'm not sure if those are from a previous time or if they have a question about where you are.
Let's take a...
So Nancy or Rosie, are your hands up because of the previous activity, or do you have a question now? Or you can just lower your hand and I'll know. There, okay. I just didn't want them to leave you hanging there. You're good. Go ahead, Leah.
Okay, thank you. No, I know with me giving the wrong page number, that was a little confusing. So we're going to look at this lesson here. Now this is, and we'll do this together. We're going to go step by step through this pre-ACES. So if you're a little confused now, I'm hoping in a few seconds you won't be. So pre-assess the lesson. So we have our question and we have our definitions. And we're going to think about what effective communication skills is integrated already in this as it exists. And on our grid in page 13, it has on the left-hand side the different lesson components. This lesson does not contain a warm-up, so that one is an NA, not applicable. But if you go down and look at the introduction to the lesson, this is where we can take notes in the assess column. And I'm going to do that by moving to the next page. So the assess column is right here in the yellow. And what kind of skills do you see already integrated into this lesson for effective communication? For example, I'm going to fly in one. That was not A. Effective communication skill 2A. So let's just look at that on our page 3 of our handout and see what that one is. So, number 2A, recognize meaning of gestures and body language in a particular context and use appropriately. So we're looking, if I go back for a second, if we look here, we're talking about greeting each other, we're talking about a stranger and a friend. So we can assume that by giving these definitions, we're going to be looking at body language, and that's that EC2A. All right. All right, let's move to the next part is the reading, and this is the guided practice, so that's the next component of the lesson on that left column. In the process of teaching this reading and reading this story, what effective communication skills are going to emerge? At this point, I would love anybody who would like to share out to chat. If you go in the box and chat some of the skills that you see. So is it 1D? Is it 2B? What is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of this will depend on how we as a teacher add to the story and where we stop and how the activity is structured. Definitely, Gail just put up the twos. The content itself really lends itself to skill 2A and B, and if as a teacher we're really paying close attention to the intonation, the C could come out in that as well. Again, for the ones, the 1A, B, and I think somebody said E, definitely those could be a part of the lesson if we intentionally make sure that we do that within that lesson. So I'm going to move on to what answers I came up with. I think I was a little bit conservative. I just put the 2A and 2B. If I just used the paper itself and didn't do much more explanation, those were the two I thought that I would use. And definitely I would get to the, as you see when we complement the lesson, we're definitely going to get more of those 1A, B, and E in there. All right. And here is the independent practice part of the lesson. And again, if you can chat any of the effective communication skills. And just to know, anything in the skill one, those are correct too, especially if that's your natural inclination. When you see these questions, you know you're going to be doing those things and having them help seek and offer clarification, for example. You can definitely use that. Yeah, so really that skill 2 is very prominent in that independent practice because we're looking especially at the gestures and body language and which register is appropriate. They have a sister in there and then they have a coworker basically, and they're going to greet. Obviously, she greets her sister quite differently than the coworker is greeted. Again, I can definitely see where we could easily use intonation as part of this if we add that in ourselves. Okay, there is not an extension, and I am assuming for assessment that I would kind of assess based on those two pieces as well. Okay, now this is going to be a time for us sort of to disband for about 15 minutes as you access the YouTube video. The URL is right here. It's also available in the materials. I believe if you click on it in the materials, it will open up a browser for you and you can watch it. We're going to give everybody, I'll be here, but we're going to give everybody 15 minutes to come back because the video is about 20 minutes long. And if you just watch about 15 minutes of it, that should be sufficient. So when you're watching, I want you to think about what skills from effective communication are being integrated into this lesson very intentionally. And you can jot those down on the grid, and you'll put those in the grid on, let me get back in here, in the complement column right here. Okay, so let me, whoops, I'm giving you answers here. Let's go back. When you come back in 15 minutes, I think we'll do a share out instead of a chat. All right? Any questions before I let you go to watch the video?
So We have 3 questions with question words. So what's the first question we usually ask each other?
What is your name?
Okay, you can say what is your teacher's name too. But yeah, what is your name, right? If you finish number 1, go on to number 2. What question can we ask each other? Yeah, where are you from? Okay, now I have 2 more questions, but they are empty. They're blank. You get to choose. Okay, what do you want to ask?
Are you married?
Okay, good. Go ahead. You on your paper write 2 more questions you want to ask the other students. All right, so we're going to use our 5 questions. Question 1 is right here, number 1. Okay, so question 1. What's question 1? What's your name? So you will ask, and then you will write the name here. So for example, let me ask over here. So, what's your name? Good. Now, she said her name is Yamu? Okay, but I am not sure how to spell her name. What can I ask? I am not sure how to spell her name. What can I ask? Okay, good. So I can put, can you spell? Okay, question mark. So I can say, can you spell your name? Or can you spell that? Etc. Right? Okay, so can you spell your name? Y-A-M-O-U. Okay, so I'm going to put this for the example. Y-A, and then it's M-O-U-A. Like this? Yes. Okay. So I can also say, is this correct? Or like this? So you can check to see if you are correct. Like this is a good way to ask if you are correct. All right. Or is this correct? All right, great. So now I have her name. What question do I ask next? Where are you from? Where are you from? Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Laos.
Laos. Can you repeat? I didn't hear.
I'm from Laos.
Okay. What do I say if I cannot hear correctly?
Can you say this? Can you say
Yeah,
again?
can you repeat?
Please can you?
You can also say, can you repeat your name? Can you repeat that? Another thing that I usually say, let me use a different color. I often say this. If I cannot hear or I do not understand, what's this word? Yes, I say, excuse me? In the United States, if we can't hear something or maybe we don't understand the pronunciation, we can just say like this, excuse me? Like and that means I didn't understand or I didn't hear. Okay, so this is an easy one to use.
September 26th.
Question number 5.
Go ahead, you want to try me first? No, ask me. My name is Leah. Answer these questions. Okay, so hang on a second. We are going to work together in a group. And we're going to answer these questions together to share our information. So let's read number 1. Go ahead, read with me.
What words do you say when you see someone you know?
Okay. So in your language, when you see and you know, what do you say? What do you say in your language? In Spanish, what do you say? Oh, no. To say hello. How do you say hello? Hola. So if you see your friend, do you say hola or ¿qué tal? Okay. Oh, hola to everybody. Okay. So he says hola. All right. What do you do with your body when you greet someone? Now, when you in Somali language, when you do iskawaran, what do you do with your body? Okay, so you can shave or you can. All right, that is called gesture when you use your body. Okay, so you will have a poster. You will write your language, how to say hello, and you will draw a picture. What do you do with your body? What is the gesture? So you are writing the greeting, how to say hello, greeting. And you are drawing the gesture, what you do with your body. Okay.
Quran,
Yeah, your language. No, you don't have to put language. Can you draw a picture?
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
What do you do when you say hello? Okay, very nice, thank you. Each group will show their poster. You will stand up, show your poster, and say your greeting, right? And show your gesture. All right? So say your greeting, show your gesture. That makes sense? Now, when when one group is showing their information, when they are sharing the information, what does everybody else need to do?
Listen.
Okay, listen and look. You don't have to repeat this time. But yeah, you just, when they are presenting, we need to be polite, right? Polite, so we listen and we look. Listen. Golagay, and this is Karen language. Golagay. Okay. Okay. Good. Nice. Thank you. Marina, can you share yours?
En español.
Okay.
Hola.
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 You try?
¿Cómo estás?
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás? And this is Spanish, correct? Okay, great. Thanks, Marina. Yuto?
Jumritsu.
One more time.
Jumritsu.
Yeah, and what language is that?
Jumurutu.
Your language?
Yes.
Is it Cambodian?
Jumritsu.
Okay, great. Thank you. Halima.
Stolen the same because your one person, you see the one person, you say stolen that time. Also the salam alaikum to all the Muslims.
Good.
Sometimes women shake hands and men to shake hands.
I want to, when you are talking in a group, we are using English to communicate because we are from different countries and we don't know each other's language, maybe, right? So we are using English to talk to each other, to help each other with the poster. What do you say in English when you want somebody to do something? What can I say? Like if I am working with Hip Chen, and Hip Chen Maybe he's like this. He's just like, what do I say? Okay, there we go. Let's put some ideas down. Can you please help? Sure. Can you help? And then you can put. What if somebody is very shy? They're very shy. What can you do to help them participate in the group? You can say things like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Try to get them. You can say, don't worry, right? Don't worry, it's okay. What do you think? What do you think? Or, what is your idea? Also say something like, your turn. Your turn. We've already talked about three things. Number one is reading. What is the definition over here? Which one? I would like you to read this story and answer the questions on the next page. We don't have time in class to do it together today, so we will continue it tomorrow, okay? But do this for homework. Ask another student in the class. I would like you to ask this question. How do you greet a family member? Answer, I greet a family member with a hug, or a kiss, or a handshake, or I say hello. Okay? Now, I want you to talk to one student, write their name, write their country, and then ask them, how do you greet a family member? Okay, then, how do you greet a friend? How do you... Sister.
Say hello.
Hey, how are you doing? Good. We'll be out in a minute.
Okay, I think that's a little slow, but it's
Oh, is it? Oh, I guess we'll be out now.
I guess so.
We have to go. Sorry.
Well, let me give you a heads up. What we'll do next is we're going to look at each of the components of the lesson, and I'm just going to have you chat again the different skills you saw, and then I'll open it up for us to share out any other reflections or thoughts you had about the video. But we'll start with a kind of structured format of looking at what essential communication skills came up in each area. So, Ralu, Sarah, are you there? Great, Sarah's here.
Ralu is, her microphone is muted, so if she's talking, we wouldn't know it. So,
okay.
So I think you should go ahead, though.
All right, let's continue. I'm going to just go to the next screen here. And we're going to start with the warm-up. So we'll start with the chat, like I said, but definitely I want us to share some other input and ideas after. We'll just get through some of the more technical pieces of this. So what EC skills did you see in the warm-up? You can also look at page 14 of your handouts. On the right-hand column is the lesson plan for the post-ACEs lesson. On the left-hand column was the one we saw earlier, the pre-ACEs. So they're kind of side by side. And just to remind you what each of the components you looked at were, the first one, the warm-up, was getting the mix and mingle going. So they did the mix and mingle about who are you, where are you from, that sort of thing. And we looked at clarifying questions. So given that activity, go ahead and chat any easy skills that you saw. For example, yeah, exactly. Okay. So we have, I got to pull mine up too. I do need to be an octopus here. I do feel like it's so hard to manage all the papers. Okay, A and B. Yep, definitely. Was there, I don't really necessarily see anything from 2. So let's see what I put. So for warm up, 1A and B, and then I thought an E. Definitely C, definitely some of the students are affirming each other. I definitely see that. E, participate, make contributions, encourage the contributions of others. Yeah, basically whenever you do a mix and mingle and somebody comes up to you and asks you a question, you kind of have to participate. So I think that's encouraging participation. Yeah, definitely the C, modeled, but not intentionally taught. Great. Okay, let's look at the introduction. And on that lesson plan for the introduction, it's when they did their posters. So kind of easy skills when we did the small group work together on talking about their language and their gestures. Yep, definitely 1C. Other ideas? Yeah. And eventually 1E, that's right. We talked about how to encourage people to contribute to the group. It's really interesting about that. My original intention was to put that before the group work, and then I changed my idea as I was giving the lesson because I really wanted them to get involved in the group work and then use that as kind of a springboard to see what they were already doing to help encourage each other. And then I would have that as a foundation for the next time we do group work. So there's definitely different ways to do it, but that was sort of my thought process around it. All right, so given that, I put 1A through E and 2A. And I might be a little bit liberal in my assessment of my lesson, but those are the ones that I thought it contained. For the guided practice, if the lesson says that they're reading the story to themselves, then we're doing questions together. They actually did that as a homework assignment, and then we came back and we were to do the graphic organizer together and discuss the lesson. So if we did that, it would have been these skills, 1A, 2A, 2B. Independent practice was comprehension questions. You could write about the topic. And at the very end of the video, they did a mix and mingle about one another's greetings and gestures. So for the independent practice, especially within that mix and mingle, they were definitely talking about a level of formality and the kinds of greetings. The lesson itself has the extension on page 14. However, this is not part of the video. So the extension was to have been a presentation where they interview a partner and talk about their greetings and gestures. And the assessment, in the lesson itself, there's a rubric that basically scores the extension activity, that presentation, and how effective they are in talking about the gestures and greetings and that level of formality. So, and that's part of the bigger lesson, which I will show you how to access at the end of the webinar. Yes, Gail. You can, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, let's talk about it. So if anybody wants to say anything or ask any questions.
I guess I just wanted to know how many people are in your class and whether the extension is something that you plan to do with everyone, or if they're quick enough to get there.
Right. So this particular day, well, actually for this lesson, I did not do the extension. I have done the extension in the past, but between the videotaping and just how the week went, we didn't have time. So I chose not to do the extension. In the past, I did have everybody do it. I have about 20 students in my class. So they stood up and each person took a couple minutes with their partner. And so if I was introducing my partner and then she introduced me, that would be about 3 to 4 minutes. I would say 4 minutes for each. And then that's 10. And I did not, the last time I did it, I did not do it in one class time. I did it over the course of 2 different classes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, other questions, insights, observations, suggestions? You can unmute and talk. Okay. I have one thing I just want to share is that what I was able to do from the poster is make the connection, and I don't think this came out in that lesson, it was the day after when we went over the homework, the reading, was make the connection between using another language and using a level of formality or like an academic language in different situations, so that it is like code switching, where I can talk to somebody and greet them in their language, and then I can, maybe one person I greet this way, another person I greet the other way. But then we bring that to English, and the idea that there's code switching also in English. And I think that helped. I built that connection much better the second day, and it wasn't as obvious in the lesson that you watched. Okay, just any other comments, please feel free.
Oh, Leah, I see Aaron's hand is up.
Yeah, I was just thinking another kind of code switching kind of occurs when we bring in like if you wanted to bring in the skill 3 stuff, you could maybe talk about how you greet people differently over the phone and how you don't have the use of gestures. And so maybe how you use your intonation or your tone to convey different, modes of communication or different attitudes and politeness over the phone.
Okay, I just have to say that's brilliant. Yeah, that is super, because this lesson does not, first of all, it does not have skill 3 in it, and the idea of then making that the extension I think is just fabulous. And the other connection that I really love that you made was the idea of having to replace intonation, I should say it the other way, having to replace body language with intonation, or body language with the way you use your words in an email or emojis or whatever it is that we want people to be able to express. Thanks for that.
Oh my gosh, it would be so fun to do a lesson with emojis.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So Leah, I would just add...
Great. Well, let's continue on.
Hey Leah, could I add something?
Absolutely.
Thanks. So I would just add, as I had the pleasure of being there when this lesson was being taught, how awesome it was to see students giving these little mini presentations, and how even at lower levels of ESL we can start doing that, and that's such an important skill, as we know, for later on. And it was low key, it was low pressure, but they still had to stand up and say something in front of a whole group. And I think there's a lot of power in that, and this was a nice way to really start that. And they were even presenting something in their own language in some cases. So, saying how to greet someone in their own language. It was brief, but it was a nice sort of entry into that higher level work that they'll be expected to do later on.
Yeah, and it just was fun.
It was super fun.
It was fun. Great. Okay. Thank you. Let's go on to, we just have about, I would say we could get through this next piece in about 5 to 7 minutes that we have left. So this is a little bit, some people have a hard time getting their heads around this next idea, but really the idea is that if you see the circle in the background, that is the target environment. And then on the forefront is our classroom environment or our one-room class, you know, schoolhouse, whatever it is that our environment is. And really, as an adult educator, what we're trying to do is have our classroom mirror as much as what they're going to need in whatever their target environment is. So that target environment can be different for different learners in our class. It really is what their goal is. So when we look at this, there's only a certain amount of transition skills we can get into our lessons. And that is the box in the middle, and that's why it's smaller than the circle itself. It's the TIF lesson content, and that is the actual lesson, whatever the content is. If you're teaching about Abraham Lincoln, then that's your TIF lesson content, and you try to add some TIF skills in there. But aside from that, there are a lot of things that we can do on a routine basis in a very consistent, repetitive way that allow people to practice these transition skills without having to do a big lesson on them every single time. So those things are the things around the circle, the routines, the learning task formats. Actually, I have a, there we go. Lovely. Okay, I'm just patting myself on the back because, all right. Learning task formats, technology, norms, and language. And we're going to look at each of these, and I first want to say that they're not mutually exclusive, and one of the hardest things for people to really think about with these is that they really can be very intertwined. However, I think it's essential to separate them out so that we can see, so we can be very intentional about what we're doing. And if I know I'm establishing a routine, that helps me. If I know I'm focusing on language, that helps me. If I know if I'm creating a norm of behavior, I can do that better. And then we see that there's some crossover as well. On your handout, and it's the last handout, so I believe it's page 17. That gives you a more thorough description than what I have on my slides, but I'm going to just go through what is available on the slides. Whoops, hang on, I gotta go back. There we go. So the definitions. So routines are the process. Norms are the standards of behavior. And a lot of time what we do is we work through a process and then that becomes a norm. But really, when we think about anything that's very procedural, we're thinking of it as a routine. Norm is more behaviors that become expectations in the classroom. Learning task formats are any kind of structures, whether it is an activity that we do. So, for example, for my lesson, the mix and mingle, or the teamwork activity with the posters, that's a learning task format. Or it could be the type of document that they're using. It might be the comprehension questions always are in a certain format, and that's the format that you're using, and that's called a learning task format. Or you might use a chart or a graph. Those are different ways that students are learning these skills. Language is looking at the vocabulary and language structures specifically and intentionally to help them address some of the skills. And technology can absolutely be interwoven into all of these methods, but I again like to parcel it out so that we can make that a specific goal also for our instruction, or a specific benchmark, looking specifically at the technology that they will need in their target environment or their goal, the environment of their goal. Okay. So just to reiterate that these methods can be labeled more than one, and in lieu of the time, I'm actually going to, I hope I made that pretty clear, so I'm going to skip on to the next one and that one too. Just quickly, we'll go through this. We just have a couple minutes, and I actually wanted to take a poll. I don't know if people can stay an extra minute to take our poll, but that'd be awesome. Daily question, write a daily question on the board. Is this a routine, a norm, a learning task format, or a technology or language? Name that TIF method. This is primarily a routine. Teamwork. Working with a team is an important part of the education and workplace. In this class, you will often be required to work in a team. And this is telling people what is expected of them in that classroom, and therefore in this way it is a norm. If I'm presenting it as a way, an activity, then it could be a learning task format. Using polite language. Name that TIF method. Language. Here is one of those templates that we can use as a learning task format. This is a way to do a survey, which definitely would engage students in effective communication. And finally, emailing requests. Starts off as technology, but then it might become a norm in your classroom. So, how ready are you to take the plunge? I would like to do a quick poll before we exit. In other words, exit poll. Patsy, are you my poll guru?
I'm your poll launcher. Let me just, did it appear?
Poll must be closed to enable screen sharing. Oh, got it. Okay, yes, it appeared.
Oh, good. Go ahead, everyone, and respond to that, and then I can share. I love the fourth option, shaken in my booth.
I love that picture of that little girl. Yeah. She's the cutest. She's excited, but it's a little bit hesitant too. All right.
It looks like everyone's done it, so I'll close that and then share results. Hey, we're all in the deep end, it sounds like.
Good, we can help each other out. That's super. Oh, it says I have to hide the poll in order to share my screen, which I learned today. Yay, I learned something important.
And there she is. Look how cute she is.
Yeah, there she is. Okay, so that's taking the plunge. And I want to let everybody know that on our Atlas website, these resources are available. And before you leave, let me just show you. If I just go into Atlas, this is ordinarily how I access it because I never remember all the other stuff at the end of it. You can go into Resources, and there's ACES. Click on ACES. And I am in the final, very, very final stages of proofing my lesson. And right now, it has this wonderful page holder, but all of the full lesson for the lesson that you saw in the video will be available along with a lower level lesson and an advanced lesson as well for effective communication. So please, actually I'll be doing it this weekend, so by next week you should be able to hop on here and look at 3 different lessons that integrate effective communication. Great, that is it. In a nutshell, please feel free to email me if you have any questions about becoming more involved in ACES. Lots of other opportunities coming up. There's a lot of hybrid PLCs available, other webinars coming up, and email me if you need anything, and also check the Atlas website. The calendar has all of those available. And I would just say thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Leah and
Any last comments, questions?
And I'll just say that Leah and I can hang out for a couple minutes. If people need to go, go ahead, but we can answer questions if you have any.